What's going on, Jerome's? It's a beautiful Thursday, and it's time for another Vikings news dump. He sees you when you're pooping. So, the Stafford drama, is he going to go to the Raiders? Is he going to go to the Giants? Is he going to stay put with the Rams? It's important because it's probably going to dictate where Sam Darnold goes, either in free agency or a tag and trade. If Darnold goes to the Raiders, Stafford goes to the Raiders, Darnold to the Rams. Stafford goes to the Giants, Darnold to the Raiders. I don't know, man. But a lot of things going on. Jordan Schultz, our guy over at Schultz Report. So there's like a fun back and forth in the media. It was media on media crime, which I kind of love. Sauces. Raiders minority owner Tom Brady recently hosted Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford at his home in Montana, which is so meta, given the whole former conversation. Is Joe Montana the GOAT? Not anymore. Where they spent time together and went skiing. Brady has been actively trying to convince Stafford to join the Raiders, and discussions are ongoing. Several teams are interested in Stafford if the Rams decide to move him, with Las Vegas believed to be the most aggressive suitor. Also, I feel like Brady is going to end up being like the Darth Vader of NFL owners. Like, I feel like eventually he's going to buy the majority stake in the Raiders, and he's just going to be this presence. That's what it is. Also, Rap Sheet sort of pushes back. Raiders minority owner Tom Brady and Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana. Sources say this is what local Montanans hate, because Yellowstone basically turned parts of Montana into ski resorts. I mean, they turned Montana into Jackson Hole. The meeting, unplanned, was not extensive or in depth and did not include Brady hosting or recruiting Stafford, despite reports saying otherwise. I'm sure that Tom Brady, maybe they just ran into each other at the resort. I feel like Tom Brady would have CIA or NSA connections, and is like, oh, hey, can we check Stafford's emails? Oh, they just got a travel confirmation to this resort in Montana. Assistant, book me in the same resort. Presidential suite. It's going to happen. Like, I feel like Brady is putting on that full court press, because you look at Pete Carroll, you look at Chip Kelly. They got to win now. And also, if they turn things around, maybe Max Crosby will want to stay. And I don't know. Like, Stafford probably got a year, maybe two, a solid football left in him, and I don't know what it is. Like, McVay is so weird. Like, once he's done with the player, he's just done. Like, he's just shunned. Right? He did it with Todd Gurley. He did it with Jared Goff. He's doing it now with Stafford as well as Cooper Kupp. So I don't know, man. Also, so the draft is coming up, and it was said, like, it's not a top tier draft, like last year. The quarterback class is sort of down. The receiving class is sort of down, which is an anomaly over the last 5 drafts. But I know people are pissing and moaning, saying that, oh, it's a boring draft. It's a meat and potatoes draft. Well, that's good, because the Vikings have meat and potatoes needs. It's going to be good. Schefter laid out how much depth is in this 2025 NFL draft. The player you get at number 10 in this draft is similar to the player that you get at 35. Now, we've talked about this before. From about pick 20 to 70, there's going to be a lot of really good players. Obviously there's levels to everything, but I know a lot of people saw this and just like, well, the Vikings can trade down. But if the talent level is pretty flat, I mean, there's really no impetus for teams to move up, especially give up a mint to move up. So teams just don't move up to move up. Got to be a specific player that they're targeting. So we'll see what happens with the draft. I think that the Vikings' best chance would be if a team falls in love with the third quarterback, whether that's Jackson Dart, whether that's Milroe, whether that's Tyler Shuck even, and then maybe they could gin up a market at 24. But honestly, it wouldn't shock me if the Vikings are stuck sticking and picking at 24. But either way, they're going to get a really solid player, whether it's a defensive lineman, whether it's a corner, whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's whatever. Also, so at the Combine, the league gets together and they discuss things with the competition committee. And, of course, with the whole missed face mask thing, and you see it a lot, you're hoping that with the power replay that they can get these calls right and also change calls that are just egregiously wrong. Apparently, they're going to go halvesies. Rob Mahdi, replay assistant expansion under consideration for 2025 for the following, but this would be to pick up a thrown flag, not throwing a flag if one wasn't thrown, roughing the passer, unnecessary roughness, face mask, tripping, illegal crackback, block horse collar, etc. So the Sam Darnold first Rams game situation would not be fixed because it was uncalled on the field, and they can't just call in a flag from Park Avenue. Now, I understand the logic because, I mean, everyone thinks that the NFL is rigged anyway. Now, just imagine if they can call penalties from New York. Penalty. Nah. Now, I would be fine with it if it's limited to the scope of major penalties, like momentum and game-changing penalties, where it has to be absolutely clear visual evidence, that it is a call or not a call. I'm fine with that. Or I'm worried that this could lead to the officials throwing the flag a little bit too much because they're like, well, if it's not a penalty, we can pick up the flag. But I don't know. I feel like the game is over officiated as it is, and that is a major pet peeve of mine as a fan and a lot of people's. But I don't know. I would be okay if they're able to just get the call right. That's what it comes down to. And that's what the people want. Get the call right so that there isn't the specter of favoritism or whatever, incompetence. It's either stupid or evil, right? And I generally always lean stupid. I feel like that's what this is. I don't think the NFL is evil. I don't think things are rigged. But you got to be able to fix this. So hopefully they take a look at that. Also, this always bugged me. So you have, especially nowadays, where you have all this data, like you have microchips in players' pads where you can tell how many miles per hour they're running. It's like, the next gen stats and Justin Jefferson running 22.21 miles per hour. Brr. It's great. Ari Mariev breaking. The NFL says its plan is to put its electronic system to measure first downs into motion this upcoming regular season 2025. The chain crew would remain on sidelines as a backup, but this is finally happening. Also, they should have it so you can tell if the ball crossed the plane. I mean, I feel like that should be pretty easy, but it's always fun to me. Like, the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar, probably approaching trillion-dollar league, and first downs are measured by some chains and some sticks with some 60-year-old dudes with cataracts running out there. Now, I feel like the NFL was very hesitant to give this up because that's just another facet where they can have control over things. You know what I mean? Just going back to conspiracy theories again. But this should also speed up the game. But also, I don't know if the NFL wants to speed up the game because the longer the game goes, the more commercials there are and the more advertising revenue it is. Because measurements, also, I don't think coaches would like this either because coaches like measurements because it's a de facto extra timeout where they can take a breath, they can talk to the quarterback, they can talk to the defense, they can do that. But now, instead of the 90 seconds, for the chains to come out and then go back and reset everything, it's going to be like, first down. So I don't know. Like there's always long tail repercussions on decisions, but it's going to be interesting. Also, the NFL is thinking about adopting the playoff overtime rules for the regular season games. Mike Garafolo, the NFL will review overtime rules, knowing that there's been an uptick in number of victories for teams that receive the opening kick in overtime. Dynamic kickoff could be a factor here. Possible that also. How disappointing was dynamic kickoff? Like I was predicting that, hey, King Kene and Wangu is going to have 10 return touchdowns. He had one, but it was for the Jets. Possible the postseason overtime rules guarantee possession for both teams could apply to regular season. And is there a perfect solution for overtime? No, especially with 17-game season. The more possessions you guarantee a team, the longer that players play, and they're exhausted, physical toll, longer recovery time, and if you play like a set number of minutes, like say you play a 10-minute extra period, I mean that's just sort of pointless too. But everyone gets a possession, even if the first team scores. But then it guarantees that overtime is. If both teams scores, that guarantees that overtime is at least 3 possessions. But then it's sudden death. And then is it fair that the team that got the ball first is sudden? You could go round and round on this. I think the current rules are fine. Because like I said, there isn't a perfect overtime rule. No one's going to be happy, and that's perfectly fine. Speaking of happy, I just want to be happy. And I'm really happy that Kwesi has taken to heart, hey, we have cap. We have a couple of draft picks. We're going to hammer the needs that we have, and also specifically talking about getting pass rush with 4. And it is a long-term thing that the Vikings need to change their changed their modus operandi on things. And Howie Roseman, the Eagles, they won the Super Bowl, respect, and you've seen the groundwork. Like, the Eagles have the best, if not one of the best, offensive lines in the National Football League because they invested in it. Also great development. I mean, Jeff Stoutland might be the best offensive line coach in the game. And then defensive line, they sink capital, and also they spend up money. And you spent a first-round pick on Jordan Davis, first-round pick on Jalen Cotta, third-round pick on Milton Williams, third-round pick on Jalen Hunts. There's lots of things that they're doing. And Howie, from the Combine, never feel like we have enough O-linemen and D-linemen. I need that. I want that. I need that in my life. And I really hope that Kwesi... I sort of understand what Kwesi had to do for the first couple years. He couldn't just completely tear down this rooster and start from scratch because ownership would not want that. It was called a competitive rebuild for a reason, because more interest, more wins, more revenue, right? And if you tear this thing down to the studs and you have a crap season, I mean, that's greatly going to hamper the balance sheet. That's exactly what happens. But now the Vikings, I feel like it's officially Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell's team, where a lot of the guys on the roster, the majority of the roster, are their guys. They cleaned up a lot of Spielman-era contracts. A lot of Spielman-Zimmer-era veterans are gone, except for Harrison, and it's time to turn that corner. And I think that this is going to be their rooster now, and I just want Kwesi to really hammer in the trenches, especially in free agency and also the draft. Hopefully we'll do that. Speaking of which, so the thing I like about cut players is... it's a couple-fold. Number one, they don't count in the compensatory pick formula. Number two, generally they can be had a little bit cheaper because they're getting cut for a reason. You know, sometimes it's just a bad contract, but sometimes it's a dip in performance. Sometimes they're coming off injury, but they're getting cut to save cap and maybe get them a little bit cheaper, as well as you get them hungry, motivated to prove all the haters and the losers wrong. And also, if they play well, they can get another sizable contract. And Jonah Jackson. So Jonah Jackson is a guard that I respected with the Lions. He was solid. Outside zone, really good run blocking guard. Pass protection needs work. But I don't like, people piss him off. It's like, oh, well, but this guard can only do this. This one can only do this. You are not going to get a perfect guard who is young and cheap. Sorry, you can have like 2 out of 3 things, and that's it. Like Trey Smith, yeah, he's young. Yes, he's very good and consistent. He's going to cost you. That's what happens. But Jonah Jackson, even going back to the Ohio State, I wanted him in the draft. Like, Jonah Jackson was a big reason why J.K. Dobbins went for 2,000 yards. Like, absolutely perfectly suited for outside wide zone. And Jonah Williams. So Jeremy Fowler ESPN, the Rams have given guard Jonah Jackson. Yeah, Jonah Williams is the former defensive lineman from Weber State that was with the Vikings for like 2 seconds, and also the tackle with short arms from Alabama, who went to the Cardinals, I think. So Jonah Jackson, permission to seek a trade per sources. Former Pro Bowler in Detroit, signed a big free agent deal with LA last year, but played 4 games due to injury and benching. Due $8.5 million guaranteed March 12th. And all these things, like, we're obviously not trading for him. You're just waiting for the team to cut him because it's so sad. Hey, we're open to trade. Someone please come trade for this incapacitated player with a bad contract. No, it never happens. So the Vikings scooping up Jonah Jackson as a free agent, I'm in. Also, Jackson played a little bit of center for the Rams. Not very good, but it's perfectly fine. Also, another player is going to be cut. No. Next, Mike Garafolo. The Buccaneers have informed safety Jordan Whitehead they're not exercising his option bonus, making him a free agent in a few weeks, sources say. Whitehead is recovering from an injury suffered in a January car accident and is expected to be recovered well ahead of the season. So, Whitehead had been a solid safety for a couple years with the Bucs. He and Antoine Winfield Jr. Had a nice duo going on. Went to the Jets for a hot second, came back to the Bucs last year. But overall, Whitehead's 27. I think that he's a solid player. I think that if Beasley leaves, my first choice to replace him would be Javon Holland, Trevor Morig as well. Then you got guys like Jeremy Chin, different style of safety, kind of more of like a hybrid linebacker. And then also Hufanga. from the 49ers, and you throw Whitehead in there too. So there will certainly be options for the Vikings. Also an option. And assembling dudes along the defensive line, it's beautiful. So Jonathan Allen, a little bit long in the tooth, but could he still produce as a pass rusher? Yes. And he's coming off a torn pec. He's going to be 30, but he brings leadership. He can bring pass rush. He's not going to be a 3-down player anymore. He's not going to be a full-time guy. But Vikings Insider, Commanders defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, who's been granted permission to seek a trade, he's getting cut. Would have all sorts of interest in playing for the Vikings, according to Darren Doogie Wolf's on Score North. So if he's got interest, because you probably saw the NFLPA report cards, we treat family well. I think that Allen, he's not going to get paid a lot. I think that teams will see a 30-year-old pass rusher who has never been great against the run, but that's okay. We're not going to use him to stop the run because we got dudes who can stop the run. We need dudes who can get their own pass rush, and Jonathan Allen can still do that. But you muted production the last 2 years because of injury, coming off a major injury with that pec. He's not going to get more than $6 million. 1 year, $5 million, couple incentives. We'll guarantee half of it. And also, you're going to be a rotational pass rusher. Passing downs, you're in. You're probably going to play like 600 snaps a season, and we'll just go from there. See, that is quintessential Kwesi Moneyball. And I think that the Vikings could get a lot of production out of Jonathan Allen as well. Plus, motivation. I mean, Jonathan Allen's a proud dude. Wants to prove all the haters and losers wrong. Absolutely would love to do that. But that's it. That's at a Vikings news dump on this beautiful, glorious, wondrous Thursday. You guys are the best you know what to do. Skol, production value.